Hello, this is an overview of the Judgement range aggressors in patch 9. So first, a quick overview of who the ranged aggressors are. So Alandir, Astariel, Kogan, Victor, Zaffin, and Zimgigrak. So just to give an overview of ranged aggressors in general in Judgment, I think the benefits are they can do a lot of damage, and they also get to do that from relative safety. And because of that, they're good at holding souls. So typical problem for a melee aggressor is you charge in, you do a lot of damage, you get a soul, but then you're vulnerable to your opponent counterattacking you. With a ranged aggressor, you have the benefit that you can potentially take out an enemy and then be safely behind the lines. They're also great for softening up monsters, for kind of chipping in that initial damage so that your melee aggressors can go and finish them off, since most of the time melee aggressors aren't going to be able to kill a monster in one activation. And because they don't have to, or melee aggressors often have to charge, so they are limited to 2 attacks per action, ranged aggressors can often use all of their actions for attacking if they're in range to start with. So some of the downsides of ranged aggressors, like most aggressors, they have fairly weak defensive stats. They're also prevented from using ranged attacks when engaged, so they're vulnerable to having the opponent kind of jamming people into them, and they have to spend their actions moving away. And ranged aggressors often suffer from dice penalties from cover and firing into melee. So just a quick overview of ranged aggressors by the numbers. So here's the 6 aggressors. Their magic and range stat on the top. You can see that most of them are 7, with Zimgigrak at 8. These are their damage tracks. A couple things to note: Kogan ignores 1 res, so that makes his damage track even better than it looks on paper. Zaffin has the highest damage track here, but his range attack also costs 2 actions, so it's a little bit deceptive. In terms of defensive stats, there's a lot of the elves and halfling all have the 5 agility, which is great, and Zaffin also has 1 res, which is kind of unique for aggressors. In terms of health, at the high end is Kogan. He also has regeneration, so that makes him a fairly tough aggressor. Victor is way on the low end. He's the lowest in the game aside from the hero units at 12 health. In terms of the range of their attacks, Zaffin is at the top end with 10 inches. Kogan is at the low end with 5 inches, and that kind of brings me to a point here. I grouped Kogan in with the ranged aggressors here, but Kogan is really more of kind of a ranged melee hybrid hero. He has his range RNG score is 6, but his melee score is actually 7, and he has access to a 2-inch melee range weapon. So Kogan, I'm grouping him in with the ranged aggressors here, but he really is kind of a unique among this group. Then so total threat, this is going to be the walk and shoot range for these heroes. I just wanted to highlight, I think some of the heroes have an extra long. Oops, I have a little mistake here. This Kogan should be 9 inches. But anyway, yeah. So you can see here, Alandir and Astariel kind of top out with 14-inch walk and shoot threat. So now I'm going to walk through the individual aggressors and just kind of give some highlights. One thing I thought might be fun is to kind of talk about what does a typical turn with these aggressors look like. So with Alandir, he has this key ability of explosive shot, so he can spend a fate after damaging someone with his bow to apply a true damage and fire to all enemies within a group. So a typical good turn for Alandir might look like he often will walk out of melee if he's engaged, since with his high agi he tends to not get very damaged. Then he might shoot into a group of enemies, deal damage, and then apply fire to the whole group. So Alandir is uniquely good against healing and heroes who regenerate because of his ability to put the fire condition on multiple models. Next up is Astariel. So Astariel has this combat maneuver of 2 symbols to add the fire condition, and then the fate ability to do D3 plus 2 damage to everyone who's suffering from fire. So because of this 2 symbols for the fire condition, it means that it's really important for Astariel to roll a lot of dice. Of every hero in the game, I think she wants the Ring of Power the most, because getting a hit plus 2 symbols does require good dice, and it's hard to do against high agi heroes. And if she can set 1 or even 2 heroes on fire, her conflagration becomes really powerful. Oh, and she also has the Blaze ability to teleport 5 inches or be placed within 5 inches, so that allows her to escape. If someone is engaging her, she can teleport away without taking a parting blow. All right, so Kogan. So Kogan has his blunderbuss with the 3-4-5 damage track, which is really great. He also has the combat maneuver of Power Shot with a symbol and a Judgment. He can trigger knockdown, and then his ability to do Battle Cry to roll extra dice. So he doesn't have and ignore one res. So he doesn't have a Fate ability that does extra damage, but he can do a lot of damage with his blunderbuss if you set him up right. So a great turn for him might be he starts out in range with his blunderbuss. He's able to aim. He fires 3 blunderbuss shots, ignoring 1 res, so he can do a lot of damage that way. Next up is Victor. So Victor is very unique in the game and in this in ranged aggressors in that his game plan is partially to shoot people with the necrotic blast, but he also has Demon Gate to summon demons, so he can spend Fate to summon 2 different demon options, Algorath and Dorgokhan. So I'm not going to go into the stats on those demons, but basically that's kind of a whole different dimension to Victor, where he can spend Fate to summon. He does have the ability to apply the Curse condition, which is from range, which is great. He also gets this boost of an extra die on magic for every unbound soul on the field, so he can be a great aggressor just rolling a lot of dice in that way. Next up, Zaffin. So Zaffin, he has, as I mentioned earlier, his giant crossbow costs 2 actions to fire, but he does have this reload ability where if he fires it for 2 actions, he can fire it a second time for only 1 action, so he can shoot twice. That does mean that he especially dislikes being engaged at the beginning of his activation, because if he's having to move out of melee combat, then he isn't able to make that second shot for only 1 action. He also has a couple of great combat maneuvers in the ability to apply poison, and also this momentous shot, which is a push and a knockdown. And then he has the Fate ability of dealing an extra d6 true damage, which makes him a very damaging ranged aggressor. Finally, Zimge Grok. So key here, he has the magic score of 8. He has the 2S frost condition. So what the 2S frost condition has a couple different effects, but it includes -1 damage on basic attacks and your agility being capped at 3. Your move is capped at 3 as well. So it's great if he can happen to land a frostbolt against a high edgy hero. That's hard to do, but if he does, it's a really great bonus. Reducing the basic attack damage is also really great. So he has his frostbite just with a magic score of 8 is just great alone. He can also do Ice Storm. So if he has a couple of ways also of amping that up. So Ice Storm, he can walk up, trigger this. So it's D3 plus 1 models within 4 inches, 3 true damage, and frost. So that's really a great way to do a bunch of damage. And then he can combine that with Switch, where he can walk up, do an Ice Storm, and then switch away. That's a great turn for him. Cone of Cold is also I think worth calling out, because if you are able to set up a Frostbolt that targets 3 heroes, that's just really, really devastating. All right, so just an overview here of some comparison of these different heroes. So a couple things that I think varies among the ranged aggressors is how able are they to unjam themselves. I think Alandir and Istariel are uniquely good at that. And Kogan and Zaffin in particular really want help getting unjammed so that they can be maximum effectiveness. Next thing is, in general, all aggressors are artifact hungry. Maybe slightly less so than melee aggressors, because melee aggressors really want defense as well as offense, where ranged aggressors I think are most interested in that Ring of Power or Heartseeker to boost up their dice. So in particular, Astariel I think is notorious as being the most the hero in the game that benefits the most from the Ring of Power. And then also I think it's fair to say that Zaffin and Kogan are really excited to get the Heartseeker, and Alandir, certainly the Heartseeker as well, is a great choice for him. And then the last question is, how fate hungry are they? So I think the question here is how much fate do they want to be spending over the course of the game to really function at their best effectiveness? So I think that my answer here is, I think that Zaffin and Astariel especially really want to be using their fate ability every turn if at all possible. Victor also loves to have fate. He's extremely fate hungry because if he can summon Dorgokan, that costs 2 fate. So potentially he's doing that multiple times in a game. That can be the highest fate use of any hero in the game. And then I mean, Alandir, Kogan, and Zimgagrak, like most aggressors, they can spend fate on their to make themselves more powerful. But I think I'm saying they're less fate hungry because I think they can still be really effective without needing to use fate. All right, that's it. So thanks so much for watching this overview. It's brought to you by WarTable.online, where you can go to play Judgment for free. Would be happy to hear any feedback on how I presented these heroes, etc. So thanks so much for watching.